reform that was launched on July 1, and we firmly hope and believe that it's going to be a South Asia, East Asia moment for Pakistan in terms of improving competitiveness for our export industry. Right sizing of the federal government, we continue to move forward in terms of the 43 ministries, 400 plus attached departments, and then there are some very clear decisions which have been implemented in terms of merging of industries, in terms of closing down PWD, in terms of closing down Utility Services Corporation, and the process of winding down PASCO. Pensions for our government colleagues, civil government colleagues, we have now moved to defined contribution in terms of the new entrants. And debt management, I've just already talked about it. We are restructuring our debt management office in a big way so that they can continue to create the alpha. Because I think that's very important. It's not only about the policy rate coming down and therefore the debt servicing coming down, the liability management trades that the office is now doing, etc., is helping us with the debt servicing costs, and that's very important because we can then continue to put that money into other sectors which actually require those funds. Next. So these are some of the external validations which came through during the course of this year, starting with the rating agencies. After a hiatus of about 3 years, the 3 rating agencies are aligned in terms of their sovereign ratings and, more importantly, their outlook for Pakistan, and all of them talk about the ongoing reforms under the current administration. If we also look at some of the IFIs, the World Bank saying staying the course on reforms is critical to maintaining growth, and ADB saying that economic reforms and advancing structural reforms by this administration is commendable. Next. These are also some of the independent surveys which have happened, and these are just the surveys over the last few months. So the PwC, because I think that leadership matters, if the top Pakistan CEOs are saying that optimism about economic growth has jumped to 83%. Similarly, Overseas Chamber, which talks about overall business confidence, 22%, up from 11% last time they did the survey, which is doubled in 6 months. Ipsos confidence and optimism about Pakistan's economic direction is at a 6-year high. So we will continue to look at these surveys as we move forward. Now let's talk about the reform agenda. So I've talked about some of the reforms and the policy reforms which are underway at this point in time, and we are very clear to stay the course in terms of those reforms and now really notch it up in a big way in terms of the institutional reforms, because that is the only way to ensure that we do not get into boom and bust cycles. We do not get into gold rush. We get to a sustainable growth through this reform agenda. So this, the next set of reforms, extensive consultations have taken place with key stakeholders and ministries over the last year or so, and therefore the focus is now on a few themes. Improving market governance to stimulate private capital in growth-oriented sectors, regulatory and tax policy predictability, which is really all about consistency. It is going to be a key driver of growth. Improvement in public financial investment management and prioritizing those areas which stimulate growth. Improved contract enforcement, because I think that's a critical enabler in terms of investor confidence, whether these are local investors or foreign investors. Next. Continuing on our journey with respect to automation and digitization, whether it's FBR or EPAD. So there's more fiscal space available for growth-oriented sectors, and we eliminate essentially discretion from procurement. Double up on the simplification of laws, the regulatory guillotine, and all the discussion which is already underway. We just need to accelerate that journey. over the next 1 to 3 years. It will help ease of doing business and certainly lower compliance costs for the private sector, and further improve institutional linkages, which are and sort of really connecting all the agencies and departments which are undergoing reforms at this point in time. So there are really three core streams. The first one is growth-oriented fiscal and public investment governance. जैसे मैंने जिक्र किया, इसमें public procurement का बहुत important है. We are well on our way. I think the Prime Minister himself will mention some of the statistics in terms of how many agencies and how many departments are already now working through this procurement mechanism. But it's all ensuring that we remain competitive, public funds are saved, and ultimately it's all about providing the fiscal space and getting the fiscal space. Development spending, I know, sir, Mr. Planning, it's very close to your heart in terms of how we create more fiscal space for more development spending, and certainly growth-focused PSDP. And the rationalization process, which is already underway, I think is going to be a big help on that side. Enhancing market confidence and simplification of regulations, that's theme number 2. So regulatory predictability under the Asan Karobar Act 2025, and just operationalizing that as we go forward. Value-driven tax policy, I think that's absolutely critical. That what we have done during the course of this year, that we have taken policy out of FBR, so that FBR can really focus on collections, and the tax policy is really driven by economic value considerations, not how we make the math work. So operationalization of this tax policy office in the next year is going to be absolutely critical. And then getting to the real-time information, which will help us with timely decisions and timely execution. And the last one is building trust in legal processes. Already, the Law Minister is taking a huge lead on that front, but addressing the backlog in special courts, tribunals, AML enforcement, and asset recovery. Just the last bit, how we're going to implement it so that we can build on the current momentum. So under Prime Minister's directions, senior cabinet ministers will continue to supervise implementation of relevant reform areas. Ministry of Finance will act as a secretariat. FCDO will help us with a lean technical unit. And then the consultative process will continue in terms of senior level policy dialogue with academia, think tanks, business representatives, bodies, and civil society, so that we continue to refine and tweak the reform process as we go forward. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And now I will request the Prime Minister to address the audience. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished members of the Cabinet, Excellencies, development partners, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. Today is not just about launching a reform program, it is about reflection and it is about resolve. 2 years ago, when this government assumed office, the economy we inherited was confronting immense challenges. Internationally, Pakistan had been sidelined and not part of the main frame of global economic engagement. Economically, we were struggling. Inflation was around 30%. Reserves were dwindling and confidence had evaporated. Institutionally, the state machinery was confused and in disarray. Ladies and gentlemen, I knew, as did my honorable colleagues, that the challenge were immense. But we also knew, without any ray of doubt, that the task at hand was difficult but not impossible. This was not the first time a PMLN government had been entrusted with pulling Pakistan back from the brink. In 1997, we faced economic sanctions and isolation, yet we stabilized the economy. In 2013, we inherited crippling energy shortages, terrorism, and economic stagnation, but we brought the country back on the track. And when we assumed office in 2024, we knew exactly what lay ahead of us. And there was no doubt that restoring Pakistan's economy would demand hard choices, choices that would not spare our own political constituency. And there could be no shortcuts, no populism, no denial. It was time for an economic crusade. We took very difficult decisions, guided by a clear purpose to pull Pakistan out of economic crisis and put it back on a path of stability and gradual growth. We withdrew unsustainable subsidies. We initiated long-delayed privatization reforms. We restored fiscal discipline. We strengthened public financial management. These were long overdue structural reforms, not cosmetic fixes. They demanded difficult economic choices which were totally unavoidable. Today, the results speak for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 2 years, Pakistan has made real, measurable progress. Inflation has fallen dramatically from 29.2% to 4.5%. Foreign exchange reserves have more than doubled from $9.2 billion to $21.2 billion. The current account has shifted from a $3.3 billion deficit to $1.9 billion surplus. And we moved from a primary deficit to a primary surplus. The fiscal deficit has also narrowed. The tax to GDP ratio has risen from around 8% to over 10%, yet still way behind tax to GDP ratio in the region. More than 1 million new taxpayers have entered the formal system. Tax collection grew by 26% in 2025. We have digitized government systems at scale. The e-procurement system, EPATS, now covers over 1,000 federal agencies and more than 500,000 contracts integrated in real time with FBR, NADRA, and SECP. Recently, we successfully executed the privatization of Pakistan International Airlines and First Women Bank, steps long discussed but never delivered, and the process